Computer, start recording. All right, so tonight we are going to be doing again a review of the first part of lesson 2 and expounding upon it with a lot of these dagesh and things, because sometimes this can be a very tricky principle to navigate as we're starting out. So let me get those slides shared. All right, so last week we learned these 3 consonants: Gimel, Dalet, and Hey. We learned the Gimel and Dalet have kind of a sibling or a cousin, whatever you want to call it, that have a different pronunciation, and it all depends on if it has that middle dagesh dot or not. And so tonight we're going to be branching out and learning more about how these are pronounced without the dagesh dot. So just taking a look at the basics, the principles here. So a review that Gimel looks like a guy playing golf. That Dalet looks like a door with a doorknob. Hey looks like a house with a hole so that that air can escape freely. It can move freely, just like it does in the back of our throat. But Gimel and Dalet, if they do not have a dagesh, well, they're obviously going to look the same, just without a dot, but they are pronounced a little bit differently. So Gimel, without a dagesh, is pronounced Gimel, Gimel. You're still trying to do the G sound, but you're trying not to have it be plosive, rather fricative in the back of your throat. It's kind of like you're trying to gargle it or trying to restrict it. You're trying to push it out, but then your throat is actively restricting it. And then the same with Dalet. It's kind of it goes from plosive to fricative. And so take a look when you pronounce a D. Look at the tip of your tongue. Notice where it hits the bridge right behind your teeth. D, D. But Dalet is pronounced between the teeth. So you take the tip of your tongue and put it between your teeth, kind of like you're going to pronounce the English word the. So there's 2 different sounds in the Hebrew that are very similar, and they're both in between the teeth. The one is Dalet, which we're learning tonight, and the other one is Thalet. And so the difference between the two is if you're vibrating, if it's voiced or not. Voiced means that you're using your vocal cords. It's causing a vibration. So the one tonight, Dalet, is voiced. And so you can put your fingers on your Adam's apple or on your throat and feel when you put the tip of your tongue between your teeth and produce that th sound, you're not just having airflow through, you're actually voicing it. It's not something that we typically do in English. Some different dialects, we kind of take the 2 sounds and merge them together in English. And so sometimes when we pronounce the, we voice it, sometimes we don't. But we don't really notice that there's much of a distinction there. But in Hebrew, it's very important to distinguish between the 2 sounds. So again, G, golf, R, rule, D, door, V, breathe. Breathe is kind of one of the best examples that uses that th sound, breathe. So they're going to be written just the same. And then also we're going to learn the other vowel sound that is kind of a companion with the one we learned last week. Last week we learned hirik, which is a single dot underneath of a consonant. That's always where hirik is going to be. But there's also a more mature version of it, which is called hirik malay. Hirik malay is that same dot underneath of the consonant, but it also is followed by kind of a pseudo consonant called yod. We'll learn that consonant down the road in 2 weeks, I believe. But anytime that you see hirik or hirik malay, they're going to be almost the exact same sound. There's just a slight little tweak to them. So hirik is pronounced E, as in B. Hirik Malay, or hirik Yod, is pronounced E, as in ki. We kind of add that little nuance of a ya at the end. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. And so to an untrained ear, they're going to sound exactly the same. E, like they're very similar. And so for now, we can kind of treat them the same. But when we get into more grammar principles and things, we'll see why we would use one versus the other. So let's do a quick review of our diacritics. So diacritics is the blanket term for all 4 of these things that you see on the screen. These all come from a Sephardic or Masoretic background. This came up a few times this week, or last week rather, is a little bit of confusion around Sephardic and Masoretic and what's the difference. So Sephardi is a Hebrew word for the country of Spain. So if you are Sephardi, you're a Spaniard who speaks Hebrew, kind of thing. And so around the 1200 year range there was a group of Masoretes who were Sephardi living in Spain, and they are the ones who kind of combined and want to standardize the language. And so anyway, sometimes we can kind of use it interchangeably. All Masoretes are basically Sephardic, but not all Sephardics are Masoretes, if you want to kind of take a look at a Venn diagram approach to it. But regardless, we're not going to be spending too much time on needing to know the history of all of that quite yet. But diacritics is the whole study of everything, all of the training wheels that they put around the consonants to help us look at the pronunciation and values of those, of the sounds. So we have the 4 different types of diacritics. We have cantillations, which are almost always above. Sometimes they can be below. Garesh, which is off to the side. Dagesh, which we'll heavily focus on tonight. Lesson 2 is all about the dagesh. And then the nikud, or the vowel system that lies below the consonants. For the most part, there's 3 that kind of break the rules a little bit. So with that dagesh, just a quick review, we've got 2 different kinds of dagesh. By default, we just assume that all dagesh are dagesh chazak, which means that the consonant sound is doubled. So instead of writing 2 mems side by side, we would just put 1 mem with the dagesh, and we know that it's a double M sound. It's doubling the consonant. That is until we learn the 6 beged kefets, which comprise the dagesh kal. In the dagesh kal category, there's 6 different consonants that actually change their sound when they have the dagesh. So they don't just double, they produce an entirely different sound. And you're going to find that they're kind of like your worst nightmare, because these are the hard sounds in Hebrew. These are kind of some of the more classic ones. So the acronym to learn the beged kefets, which ones of these 6 consonants are the ones that change their sounds, and otherwise it would be a dagesh chazak. So beged kefet is bet, gimel, dalet, kaf, fe, tav. Now we've learned the first 3, and we'll eventually learn the rest. Tav is going to be one of our very last lessons that we have. But we still want to memorize their letters right now and their sounds so that we can start distinguishing the beged kefets. So all of the beged kefets, I find that especially this last week with our first group on Monday, it was very handy to start practicing these. So if you would like to practice along, ask that you would keep yourself muted so it's not echoing back kind of a thing. But let's practice them out loud, getting repetitious practice with them. So if you would repeat with me the names, and we're going to go through the names quite a few times, and then we're going to go through the sounds, etc. So Beged Kefet, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Fe, Tav. Again, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Fe, Tav. And if we kind of add a little bit of a musical quality to it, a cadence, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Fe, Tav. Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Fe, Tav. So this is going to be something very handy if you start trying to recall this all week long. Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Fe, Tav. Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Fe, Tav. If you'd ask any Hebrew speaker what Beged Kefet is, it's a very common thing. It's something that you just have to commit to memory, and it's just one of those Hebrew acronyms that everybody knows. Beged Kefet, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Fe, Tav. So now let's practice with their sounds. So let's do the plosive version of all of them. So we've got B, G, D, K, P, T. 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 Bugada kapata, bugada kapata, bugada kapata. If you want to start getting fast and doing that. But this is also a very great practice to start getting these Beged Kefet sounds in your mind. Now we're not going to do the non-plosive one. I mean, this is a very tricky one. If you're just doing the guttural sounds, it's very hard for them to roll off because they're all just hugging a loogie over and over again. But memorizing them in their plosive is very helpful. So again, let's do the names and then the sounds. So we're going to do Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Fe, Tav. Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Fe, Tav. And then their sounds with the plosive. B, G, D, K, P, T. B, G, D, K, P, T. So practicing those over and over again. If you need to print it out, or if you want to write them on flashcards or whatever, but get that Beged Kefet as second nature as you can. That's going to be kind of one of the main homework assignments for this week. Get that down so that it just rolls off the tongue. When we talk about Beged Kefet, you just know what it is. So that way, when we are talking about Dagesh, anytime that you see any of those other Dagesh, they're just going to be second nature. Oh, it's a doubling because it's not a Beged Kefet. Bagada kapara, bagada kapara. All right, so let's practice with some of these sounds. Now, just a quick question. Is my microphone picking up like these sounds fairly well as I'm doing them? I forgot if let me turn on my original sound really quick.
Cameron?
Yeah.
When I went through these, I got an awful echo.
Oh, sorry. Let me turn that off because yeah, it'll echo if yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. The first time through, when I was doing the big, the plosive for the cafe tav, is P. And so that was confusing to me because you got the P and then you got the F, and it's Beged Kefet. Maybe to explain that just a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
I got it now, but
so
through me.
The reason that we changed instead of having all 6 of them in their plosive form is that Kefet with the F sound rather than the P sound is an actual word. If we put the plosive in there, then it's not an actual Hebrew word. And so that's the one that it changes when we are trying to say Beged Kefet. It transliterates into clothing knotted up kind of a thing. If we were to take a t-shirt and knot it up, that's a Beged Kefet. And so when you're practicing, I mean, you could interchange it just fine and do beged kepet, but it's not going to be like an actual Hebrew word in its acronym kind of form. But as you're practicing, that's why when I do the plosive sounds, I just do all of them plosive, but you could easily go bet gimel dalet kaf fe tav or b g d k f t. You could easily do that as well. So it's comes down to your personal preference as you're wanting to practice. Either way, I still think that it gets into your brain, whether you do a fe or a pay in that. All right, does that make sense? Did that explain it enough? All right, so I'm going to turn on my sound so my microphone picks up a little bit better on these things, but if you want to mute or else it'll give an awful echo. All right. So let's practice with what we've got so far. We've got Aleph, which is silent, Bet, B, B, Vet, V, V, Gimel, G, G, Rimmel, R, R, Dalet, D, D, Valet, Th, Th, Hey. And so let's practice some of these combinations again. So if the consonant is silent, we're just going to be doing the vowel sound. We've got E, A, A, E, A, A. Now with bets, we've got Ba, B, Ba, B, B, Ba, B, Ba. Now with vet, we've got Va, Va, V, 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 Va, V, Va. With Gimel, we've got Gi, G, Ga, Ga, G, Ga, Ga, Gi, G. With Rimmel, this one's the more tricky one. We've got Ri, R, Ra, Ra, R, Ra, Ra, Ri, R. Again, those are tricky. If they're not coming right away, just have patience, keep practicing them. That R is just trying to do the G sound, but squelching it in the back of your throat, kind of gargling it. R. But you do it enough, it eventually starts coming. All right, Dalet. D, da, D, D, da, D, D, da, D. Valet, th, tha, the, th, tha, th, the, the. With hey, ha, he, ha, he, ha, ha. It's a lot easier. I wish all of the letters were like that. All right, so let's look at some combinations. We've got av, abba. Now this is just a sound. It's not the word abba. That is spelled differently. Abba. We've got bg, bg, not bg. Why? I got the musical group in my head, I guess. Biggie, biggie. Heave, heave. Heed, heed. Da, da, God, God, dog, dog. All right, here we have the actual name for father, one's own father. Abba, Abba, Gadiv, Gadiv. And that one's just a sound. Only that first one is an actual word. Haggadah, Haggadah. Actually, that one's a word too. Maybe I put the middle. Gadiv. I don't think Gadiv is a word, but I could be wrong. Maybe I need to recount. I need to go study that one out. But Haggadah is another word as well. All right, so let's practice in 4 different categories here. So this is going to be our speak category. This is the one that's most frustrating to people. So have patience. This one is all about hearing. I'm not going to put the actual spelling up on the screen, but once you get the answer key there on the website, it'll have it. But try not to cheat. Try to just hear the words, because hearing is a crucial step in being able to differentiate sounds. As we are advancing and learning in Hebrew, there's going to be times when you're going to want to hear what they're saying, and so this is a crucial skill to be developing early on and getting practice with it. So I get that it's the most frustrating. So the definition is up on the screen, and I'm going to pronounce it, and hopefully it comes through on the microphone just fine. But to love is ahav, 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 ahav. To perish or be lost, avad, 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 avad. To be willing, to wait, or to long for. These are kind of complex things. Sometimes, if anybody's ever learned another language, it's interesting how many times that we have 5 different words in English that compound into one word in another language, or the opposite, where we have one word in English and there's 5 different words in Spanish that might mean the same, or different principles, different nuances of that same word. So here's one. So to be willing, or to wait, or to long for is all kind of combined in this one word. Excuse me. Almost had to sneeze. Ava, 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 ava. To treat or deal faithlessly, or to treat treacherously, is a really hard word, so listen to these consonants. Bagad, bagad, ba, ga, th, bagad. To treat or deal treacherously. I mean, it's a treacherous word to pronounce, so that's how you can remember it. To be high, lofty, or exalted. Gava, gava, ga, va. To moan, mutter, or ponder. Now this one kind of sounds like a moan. So again, this is kind of some of the harder words to pronounce. Ha, 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 ra, ha, ra. So we've learned 2 different kinds of fathers last week. So again, the generic kind of father, if you're talking about somebody else's father, or fathers in general, of. But if you're talking about your own, and remember, you're the only one that gets to talk about your own father with this word. Nobody else gets to reference your father. This is more intimate. It's more like a daddy type of thing. And this one is Abba, Abba, Abba. So the difference, of we're doing the fricative without the dagesh, of, and when it's specific, when it's ours, we turn that fricative into a plosive and add the ah sound. Abba. Roof is gar, gar, ga, r. So if you kind of listen to that sound, the first g is plosive, the second is fricative. Gar. That means roof. Gar. I wonder how they came up with that one. Now, pronouns. Oh man, once we get into all the pronouns, it's more confusing than our current political climate. So this is one of the the harder ones to wrap our head around. So the English she is pronounced in Hebrew he. He. Now, on the other hand, I mean, this isn't one that we're going to be memorizing right now, but the English he is pronounced in Hebrew who. So he, who, he and she kind of thing. So she is he. Again, it's just interesting the times we live in, right? And to in, on, with, as, or at. Now we're looking at prepositions. So this mainly is translated as in, and it is but. So you're taking the plosive bet, b, and kind of shortening it as much as you can. But it means in for the most part. So if we're saying in the house, babite. So you just kind of add that b sound before the place that something is in, kind of thing. And all of these will be on the lesson on the website with flashcards and all that kind of stuff. So you don't have to hurry and try to memorize all these things just while we're speaking. Now, the article, the English the, is pronounced ha. And that one, again, is located before a word. So if we're saying the house, we would say habait. So if we're actually saying in the house, bahabait. Ha means the. Now, I'm actually going to skip this one because that one gets more confusing as anything. But the word for alone, we've got bath, ba, bath. It means alone. So if it had the plosive dalet there at the end, it would be bad. Is it good for man to be alone? No, it is bad. Bad for man to be alone. That's how I remember it anyway. You don't have to remember my mnemonics, but coastland is a very easy one. It's basically just a vowel. So when we say coastland, it is pronounced e. It has that little bit of a y at the end. E. That means coastland. Fish in a singular sense. So we're going to take a look at the plural and generalized here in a second, but just a singular fish is dag. Da. So the first thing is plosive and the second thing is fricative. Dag. So a fish is a dog, apparently, in Hebrew. Now, if we're talking about plural fish or generalized fish, like all the fish in the sea, kind of a thing, we're going to add a at the end. Daga. Dag. Daga. All right, so let's take a look at the next section of our practice is going to be transliteration. So you're going to want like a pencil and paper, preferably. I mean, if you just want to do it in the moment and stuff, but it'll be really handy if you have a pencil and paper to kind of write these out and sound them out. So we're going to be taking Hebrew letters and trying to pronounce English words. So These aren't going to be things that you want to put on a flashcard. You're not memorizing these as actual Hebrew words, but we're taking Hebrew letters, making English words out of them. So, what English word does this come out to be? I'll give you a couple seconds on each one. We've got bead, bead. And what is this one? I should have put this one first because then the next one kind of adds on to it. This one is bee, as in the little insect that flies around. Bee. And what would this one? Body, body. So we're not having a letter for letter transliteration. We're taking the English sounds of the word and putting them with the Hebrew letters. So not everything is like a direct correlation, but trying to sound these out and create those words there. So number 4, we've got bog, bog. So this one I messed up on the Monday session and I said bag, but it's not ah. That's not one of our Hebrew vowel sounds. This is bog. So if we were transliterating it, we would be going B-O-G, bog, to get that sound quality. Here, this one is a proper name, Bob, Bob. And here we have gob, gob. This one again is a proper name, as in the Battle of Gog and Magog, Gog. Here's the name of deity. Again, this is not the actual Hebrew name of deity, but the English word written with Hebrew letters. God, God. And another thing to note with these is that you might be thinking, why would you use a kamatz versus a patach? They both have that ah sound, right? Right now, they're interchangeable. So if you want to use one versus the other, go for it. We won't be learning that for a few weeks. Some of the grammar rules of when we would use one versus the other. It all comes down to syllables and some of those grammar rules there. But so interchangeable. If you see one, just kind of assume that it's the other as well. So here we've got the name of our beloved animals. Dog, man's best friend. Wait, right? No, Dob. I was looking at the next slide, sorry. Dob, Dob. And then here, I already gave you the answer, dog. And then number 11, we've got Dodd, Dodd. This one is a name of a popular character in a children's book, I guess, children, teen, whatever you want to call it. Dobby, Dobby. Here we're going back to an animal, an affectionate name, Doggy, Doggy. Deed, Deed. This one can sometimes be tricky until we get comfortable with those silent consonants. So this one is odd, odd. This one is a proper name, one of the first characters in the Bible. Eve, Eve. Now, if we were doing a letter by letter transliteration, I guess you would say, we might have that additional dot after the vet, right? E-V-E, but we're just going for sounds. And so E, V, Eve. Okay, so this is the next section, and we're just going in reverse. So we're going to take the English word and try to write it with Hebrew letters. So try practicing. I'll give you a little bit more time with each of these because sometimes it's hard, especially if you're trying to do it with like a calligraphy pen. It takes a little bit of time to write out those letters. But get some practice with these. I'm going to do them in more of a, not the exact same order, but try to bounce around through these. So how would we write the word, the English word bead, but using Hebrew letters? So you kind of have to sound it out, use our, how many consonants do we have now? 6 consonants, and our 4 vowels. Bead. So bead would be like this. A bet and a hirik and a dalet. Bead. All right, let's do bog. How would you write bog? All right, bog, we're going to do a bet and either a patah or a kamatz and a gimel. Bog. All right, how would we write the word doggy? Doggy. And I do have these. I can't remember if I've got the slides. I think I've just got the workbook pages that I created this week that go through all of these slides. They're just on a single sheet of paper so that you can print it out and practice with these if you ever want to. And those are located in lesson 2. I'll show you those here at the end. But doggy. Let me find the answers for them just a second. Doggy. Doggy would be dalet and either a patah or a kamatz. Gimel with a hirik. Doggy. All right, let's do Eve. Eve is going to be a little bit different because we're starting out with a vowel sound. And we can't just start with a random vowel. It has to be located under a silent consonant. Eve. All right, so Eve, we're going to be doing an olive and a hirik underneath of it, and then the vet. Eve. Let's do the English word daub. You could easily spell it as D-O-B as well, but daub. Daub. So we're going to be doing a dalet with either a patah or a kamatz underneath of it, and then a bet. Daub. Let's do just a couple more. Did we already do body? I can't remember. Let's do it again if we didn't. Body. All right, body is going to be a bet with either a patah or a kamatz underneath of it. Dalet with a hirik. Body. All right, and our last one, let's do odd. So here we're beginning with a vowel sound. Odd. So odd is going to be an aleph, or it could be an ayin, but we haven't learned that yet. And it's going to have either patah or a kamatz underneath of it, and a dalet. Odd. All right, so throughout the homework this week, I encourage you to make flashcards, or I'll have those online as well. So having 3 of each is very helpful, so that you can pull them out, make different word combinations and sound combinations. Try practicing as much as you can with all of these sounds. So there's going to be these ones from last week, and then these 3 from this week. So we've got Rimmel, Valet, and Hirik Malay. Hirik Malay, remember, is that I. It has a little bit of a y sound at the end. I, that's the difference. Any questions with anything that we've covered tonight? Would you like more practice or anything? I was just planning on spending kind of the last 5 or so minutes kind of going through the website and seeing where I've put some of the new things from this week and things. So let me turn off my main sound here and go here. All right, so in lesson 2, since this is like technically kind of like lesson 2.5, I decided to split it up into 2 different ones. So in the live sections, it's going to be affected, and we're going to have the 2.5, both a Monday and a Thursday one. Since we had such technical difficulties, I didn't have a recording for last Thursday's on there. And then in the here section, I've got, no, that one's not. It's the speak section. The speak section, I've added the second activity, and that is where kind of like those definitions that I threw on there, and then just you were listening to them. So it's basically trying to listen and trying to repeat those words that I'm saying there. And so there's that second activity that you can do. And then the read section, there's this worksheet here, which is just the slides that we went through. So you can print these out and write the English word next to it. And then over on right is just the opposite. Here's a second activity that I've added where it's the English word, and then you can practice writing that English word using Hebrew letters if you'd like to. So I think that those are the only 3. I didn't change any of the grammar stuff or the quiz. There's not going to be a quiz this week. And so it's basically that live session if you want to, and then they speak, read, and write sections have a little worksheet if you would like to print those off and practice them. So with kind of this structure of working together in class on kind of more of the homework and practice and drilling sections, in that vein, I'm going to post the instructions online during the week. So I'm just really slow. I got to get my act together. So lesson 3, there's already the intro slides for the next letters here, as well as the grammar slides for syllables. And then I'm going to be posting a video of me explaining thoroughly all of those different sounds and the letters and everything. So the real homework for this week is go and watch those or watch that video that I post on there. Again, I'll have that by midnight. It's my due date that I'm going to get that on there. And watch lesson 3, and then we're going to do the same thing next week that we did tonight. We're just going to kind of do like some drill practices and really practice the concepts that we're learning. But where we have such a like a small little hour window kind of thing, the homework will be the introduction of the principle, and then we'll utilize our time better as far as doing drills and getting practice, being able to ask each other questions in real time as we're getting practice with it. But yeah, any questions or comments before we head out? Hopefully some of these, Dagesh is always kind of a tricky one. I always hesitate. Do I introduce it right away or do I wait? So this one's different than our last time. I didn't introduce it for quite a while. But here I'm just starting right off with it. Let's tackle the hard stuff first and go in our slower pace with it and really get those letters down. I totally realize that Rimmel, Valet, these are going to be some of the harder ones to really speak well. But as long as the main thing at this point is getting down that there is a difference when it has that dagesh in the middle. Sometimes it's a doubler, and sometimes it actually changes its sound. But the pronunciation is the hardest part of speaking any language, and that takes months to really hone in and practice and get good at. If you ask anybody who's learned a language and had to really speak it well, don't worry if the pronunciation doesn't come right away. Just keep practicing, you'll get it. All right, well, let's see. Oh yeah, chat. But yeah, anyway, we will see you all next week and check back. I'll have it tonight. I'll get that video on tonight for lesson 3. But yeah, all right, have a great week, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.